I never thought I'd become the neighborhood hero for standing up to our HOA president. But when Karen Wilkinson targeted the Jensen family while their 8-year-old son Tyler was fighting for his life, someone had to draw the line. Tyler, diagnosed with leukemia, was coming home from his latest round of chemo and required a temporary wheelchair ramp for access. Drama found them anyway. Karen Wilkinson, our HOA president, with her platinum blonde bob and perpetually pursed lips, marched across the street to confront the workers. "Do you have approval from the Architectural Review Committee for this structure?" she demanded, gesturing at the ramp with obvious distaste. When a worker explained the medical situation, Karen was unmoved. "Rules are rules. This needs to come down immediately." I crossed the street to intervene. "Karen, you can't be serious. Tyler literally cannot enter his home without this ramp." She gave me that tight smile that never reached her eyes. "No one is above the HOA regulations, Mark. If we make exceptions, where does it end? Rainbow-colored houses? Absolute chaos." "This is a medical necessity," I countered. "The Fair Housing Act protects reasonable accommodations for disabilities. It's about a child being able to enter his own home." Karen's eyes narrowed. "Are you a lawyer now, Mark?" With that, she declared a $100 per day fine and stalked away. I immediately drove to the hospital. The Jensen had notified the HOA via email but received no response. Lisa burst into tears. "We can't afford fines on top of everything else." I promised them, "You won't have to. Let me handle this." That evening, I did my research. I printed out relevant sections of the Fair Housing Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and found a crucial medical emergency exemption clause in our own HOA bylaws that Karen had conveniently overlooked. The next morning, I was ready. Karen arrived, clipboard in hand, to enforce her fine. I handed her my folder. "Actually, Karen, the ramp is protected under federal law as a reasonable accommodation. Additionally, Section 7, Paragraph 3 of our bylaws grants temporary approval if the committee fails to respond to a medical request within 14 days. Karen's face flushed. She sputtered about the Architectural Committee. "You acknowledged receipt of their email last week, Karen," I said, maintaining my pleasant smile. "In the absence of a response, temporary approval is automatically granted. It's right there in our bylaws." She hissed, "This isn't over. I'll be discussing this at the board meeting tonight." "I'll be there," I replied. "And I've invited a representative from the Fair Housing Commission to join us." It was a bluff, but Karen didn't know that. She stalked away. That evening, the HOA meeting was packed. Karen tried to control the room, insisting the ramp was an unapproved structural addition. I stood up. I moved to classify the temporary wheelchair ramp at the Jensen residence as a medical necessity exemption under Section 7 of our bylaws. Karen doubled down, insisting property values would plummet. That's when Lisa Jensen stood up, her voice shaking but clear. "My son just wants to come home from the hospital with some dignity. Is your property value really worth more than my child's well-being?" The room fell silent. Karen, sensing the shift in mood, grew desperate. I projected an email onto the screen, the Jensen's original request, with Karen's own reply, "Received. We'll review." "You acknowledged receipt, Karen," I stated calmly. "The temporary request is automatically approved." Karen slammed her hand on the table. "I'm the president of this association. I decide what constitutes an emergency." Roger Simmons, a retired attorney, piped up, "Denying reasonable accommodations for a disability is a violation of federal law that could result in fines of up to $100,000 to the association." Karen completely lost control. She marched over to the Jensen, thrust her finger in Lisa's face, and screamed, "Your son's condition doesn't put you above the rules the rest of us follow. Remove the ramp or face the consequences." Lisa Jensen, the soft-spoken kindergarten teacher, slapped Karen's pointing finger away from her face. Karen gasped dramatically. "She assaulted me. Call 911. I want her arrested." The police arrived, distinctly unimpressed. They interviewed witnesses, all of whom confirmed Karen had been the aggressor. Crucially, Roger Simmons had recorded the entire meeting. The officers reviewed the footage. To Karen's shock, the senior officer turned to her. "Ma'am, the video clearly shows you invaded her personal space, and she defended herself with reasonable force." He continued, "Additionally, I've been informed that you're attempting to enforce housing restrictions that violate the Fair Housing Act. You do realize that filing a false police report is a crime, right?" The officer informed her that filing a false police report was a Class A misdemeanor, punishable by jail time and fines. Karen's face went from red to ashen as she was escorted outside to complete the police report. The remaining board members immediately called an emergency vote. The temporary ramp was approved retroactively, and Karen Wilkinson was removed as HOA president, effective immediately. 3 days later, Karen was formally charged with filing a false police report. She was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, her composure completely shattered. She caught sight of me in the gallery. The look of utter disbelief and rage as she realized her petty kingdom had crumbled was something I'll never forget. The Jensens, meanwhile, were finally able to bring their son home.